Hello, my name is Anders, and my hair is just way too long. I mean, look at this beard. Give me a sec. Better. So, now we have that done, it's time to build an army worthy of Mordor. I'm Anders, and let's talk some hobby. So we're on a journey to find out the best way to paint your armies, and last week... God damn it. We tried out batch painting. We discovered that while it is a fairly efficient way of painting your models, it does have some drawbacks such as the repetition, boredom, and trying to find that perfect balance for the number of models to minimize drying time. So now, we're going to try something different and just paint a whole army at once. For this, I'm actually going to be painting up 31 Uruk-hai for an Isengard army. I decided to not only focus on the basic fighting Uruk-hai, but include a few variations such as the crossbowmen, some berserkers, and a couple of scouts, as while they are different sculpts, all the pieces are painted in the same way, and it helps to spice up the variety in between. Just like last time, I have broken this process into a few individual steps, including 1. Prep, 2. Priming, 3. Painting, and 4. Varnish. Also, fair warning, while I am calling this an army painting video, it's technically not, as I do plan on adding these units into an existing Isengard force I already have. However, this does mean that I already have my paint plan all set up, and I do have something to compare them to once I finish this test. Afterwards, we'll compare this to the previous batch painting approach to see which way to paint your army is the winner. Also, please note, making this video was a real struggle, and I definitely missed some bits that I really wanted to film, so if this video is a little bit messier or less complete than the last one, who cares? So, let's go. Just like last time, I started by doing a few conversions to the models in order to break up the variety. I only did this for the plastic models for simplicity's sake, as I just don't like converting metal models, and focused on the swordsmen as the pikes were pretty similar already, and so I didn't mind the doubles as much. Finally, we based the models once again using my homemade texture paste mixture of spackle, paint, and sand. To give them a final touch, I added some rocks to a few of the bases, and even a few twigs to the scouts for a more foresty look with some logs. Once this was done, I did a once-over of the models to clean up any mold lines, as unlike the Hunter Orcs, there were quite a few on these models, which makes sense considering just how old they are. While the results aren't perfect, they will more than do. In the end, total time was 87 minutes and 23.11 seconds. And with that, we move on to Part 2, Priming. For the priming, I actually did have to break them into 2 smaller groups, as there was too many for my priming sticks, which I stuck them to using some blue tack. Then, I hit them with a pure white prime, due to all the contrast paints I plan on using. Total time for priming was 12 minutes and 13.48 seconds. Part 3, Painting. And now, it's on to the bulk of the work. For the skin, I mixed a roughly 4:1 ratio of contrast paints Flesh Terrors Red and Cygor Brown, but the ratio doesn't really matter. I didn't have to worry too much about keeping this clean near the metal areas either, but will need to keep off the fabric parts as they will be painted with contrast paints as well. Next, I applied Leadbelcher to all the metal, including the armor, weapons, and chainmail. This was by far one of the longest steps and took me several settings to complete. Afterwards, we applied Black Templar contrast paints to all the armor, hair, and almost all of the fabric and leather, adding a little bit of Cygor Brown to the cloth of the berserkers and scouts for some variation. This adds a really nice black look to all the metal and keeps the cloth looking very dark as it does in the movie, while still providing a nice contrast to the lighter colored skin. Then, we added a bit of variation by shading the weapons with Nuln Oil and the chainmail with Skeleton Horde contrast paint. Next up, we go in to add some details to the model by picking out their teeth with Screaming Skull and the eyes with Uriel yellow. Uriel yellow. Uriel yellow. Whatever. Finally, we edge-highlighted all the metal, such as the armor and weapons, with Runefang steel, which again, takes ages, and almost drove me insane. But it really helps bring everything together while helping to hide some of the spots where the conscious paints may have slipped out. Then, I went back to picking out the missing details like the arrows for the crossbowmen. Some extra details I added were white hands to half of the models with pallid witch flesh, varying between 1, 2, and 3 hands per unit, except for the berserkers, that just got loads. Next, we added some extra detail by applying some blood effects by mixing Flesh Terrace Red with some Gouache Rifle and Flesh Shade. I added this to some of the weapons, but I tried to keep it a little bit minimal, except for the berserkers where I put it everywhere, including pouring out from their helmets like shown in the behind the scenes material for the Two Towers film. As for the bases, we first put down a layer of skeleton horde before picking out the rocks with Dawnstone and logs with Cygor Brown, and finishing up by giving the whole thing another layer of skeleton horde. Last but not least, the two scouts are actually carrying Merry and Pippin, so I took some time and painted them up as a reward to myself for finishing before applying some tufts to the bases and painting their rims black. Total time for painting was 15 hours in 35 minutes and 27.18 seconds. Part 4, Varnish. To finish it off, I stuck them back down to the spray paint sticks and hit them with 2 layers of Tester's Dull Coat, giving them a half an hour or so between coats to let them dry. Total time, 13 minutes and 50 seconds. So all in all, this took me 17 hours, 28 minutes, and 52.77 seconds, which comes out to 33 minutes and 50.12 seconds per model, and full disclosure, I hated this. There were absolutely some positives to painting in this approach, and so we're going to start there. Namely, I never had to worry about drying times, as each individual step took so long everything was absolutely dry by the time I went back. Also, I never really did multiple steps at a time because each session took so long on its own that they had all the time in the world they needed to dry. The time per model actually came out well under the batch painting time, and especially even more if you consider that I spent almost 40 minutes or an hour just on the hobbits at the end. And the biggest positive is that I am now done the army and never have to paint another Uruk-hai again. Well, except for maybe some captains. And some siege weapons, maybe some more crossbowmen, some more berserkers. Honestly, while I do really like painting the heroes, I find the Uruk-hai warriors a real slog to paint through, and so I was really hoping that this would be an efficient way of chugging through them, but it really wasn't. Additionally, despite being a pain motivationally, I actually think this approach is a little bit problematic to painting an army. Namely, because it can lead you to putting off projects until you have all the models you need for the entire force. For instance, I was hoping to paint up my Imperial models from Star Wars Legion for ages now. However, I wanted to do all the Stormtroopers at once due to their repetition in the paint scheme, but I needed a couple more squads for the final army, which I haven't gotten around to buying. So now, it's been months and I still haven't touched the army. So, in the end, I think I'm just going to start painting them, and then finish the rest when I actually buy them. In the end, I am happy I did this, as they do all look great together with my older models. Comparing army to batch painting, while they do have pluses or minuses, I definitely feel like batch painting is the way to go, but in the future I would probably vary it up to more about 12 models per batch in order to minimize that drying time. However, this hasn't solved my hatred of army painting, and just to keep my own sanity, I actually did paint quite a few hero models between sessions, which I really enjoyed. In the end, I really do think the secret is just to split up your projects and to find that balance between the models you feel like you need to paint versus the ones you actually want to paint. Sometimes it really is great just to grab a random model off the shelf that you find interesting or you haven't been thinking about for ages and just paint it. Speaking of which, the Great British Hobby League podcast channel on YouTube has actually been doing some great content based around painting old forgotten miniatures in their battle games in Middle-earth streams, and I've definitely been feeling motivated by them lately. So, finishing up, I first wanted to thank all the people who have already subscribed to this channel, as I know it's quite new, but I really appreciate the support. I really hope the next video doesn't take nearly as long to do, as I do have a couple of ideas already, and I'm just not sure which order to do them in. Either way, they're going to be a bit different. I also hope all of you are keeping safe in these weird-ass times and finding that time to do a little bit of hobbying here and there, or whatever else you need to just keep up your mental health. I'll actually be playing some games for the first time in ages in the next couple of weeks, as we're going to be running a tiny micro 4-person tournament in my backyard that I'll be calling a socially distant tourney. Get it? Like The Hobbit. An unexpected party, a socially distant tourney, whatever. Just remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram for lots of pictures of my upcoming projects, as well as, I don't know, hot takes. And of course, remember to subscribe to the channel at the link somewhere, as maybe we're just getting started. So let me know if you do prefer batch painting or army painting, or just how you go about finishing those big projects. And for now, thank you all for watching, and have a good one.